Support for Donnybrook Last Call is provided in part by Design Air Heating and Cooling.
Thanks for joining us for Last Call. Good to have you with us. Amy, it's also great to have you back. When you were with us in February, you talked about the need to kind of regulate phones in schools. And as it turns out, maybe the people at Parkway Schools were listening to you because Parkway has announced that at the high school, phones will not be allowed in the classrooms, although when passing, which I guess goes from classroom to classroom, you might be able to use them, and at lunch. But the phones will not be allowed for students in Parkway Schools at the middle school and grade school level. Do you think this is going to go statewide or even nationwide?
I think so. I think eventually. And it is the adults unleashed this technology on this younger generation, which, I mean, it's like heroin. The phones, the social media, it's like heroin. The different parts of your brain that control emotional response, that your motivation, it deadens those. Kids, their brains are needing instant gratification, and it really is like being addicted to a drug. When you take phones away from some kids who are very addicted, have actual withdrawal symptoms. So in schools, I love that Parkway is doing this. And if you are concerned about your child not having a phone in case of emergency, the phones will be in the room, in the classroom. You know, they'll be gathered, they'll be all together. So if you have like a medical condition where maybe you need to hear an alert, or if something were to happen at the school, they can get to their phones quickly, but they'll be away from them during class time. I am so on board with this. I do think it will go nationwide.
I wish they had gone farther. I like what Normandy did, which is a bell-to-bell ban. Like you have to log that phone when you get to school, and you are not allowed to have it out at all for the rest of the day. They were having a lot of fights in the hallways. Kids were filming it. It was just escalating things. They took away these phones, and it has apparently gone swimmingly over there. So I'd like to see more of that.
Yeah, we did a story on that and then followed up.
Yeah.
And the reason you really didn't hear much on the follow-up was because, like, oh, it actually worked.
Yeah,
For all
that's
the
right.
people that went to that, you know, they had like a little town hall meeting and were, oh, but you can't.
Right.
All
My-
right.
my kid's
It's
gonna
been
be
going on
so-
for months.
Now, at the Clayton schools, they started this last June. It's almost exactly the same, I'm told, as Parkway, but they're going to revisit it in May because there's a little fly in the ointment, and that is during the passing or at lunch, the phone comes out. But then what happens when that kid, who's addicted to it like heroin, brings it in the classroom? The burden is on the teacher to enforce it, and that is apparently turning into a pain in the neck at times.
Well, because we're not giving teachers enough to do. Now they're educating the kids, they're disciplinarians in a perfect world, and now they're phone police. And I'm sure that eventually there'll be some sort of mechanism, you know, something that would help the teachers in this regard. But it seems awfully unfair to burden the teachers with this
Well, and
kind of
that's why
thing.
it would have to be consistent across the school. And I like Sarah's bell-to-bell idea. I don't know if maybe you introduce it to kids, to parents, by going classroom by classroom. Like you said, it turned out to be a fly in the ointment. But there are schools in California that graduated their first classes all 4 years without a phone during school hours. And not only were grades better, behavioral problems went down, but kids were socializing. They were talking to each other once again. And I am all for removing the phones as much as possible. Maybe they will find that the per classroom doesn't work.
Alvin, removing phones is one thing, but what about removing members of the media? The new St. Louis, Real St. Louis was banned for 30 days by the Metropolitan Police Department, the St. Louis Police Department, because Mitch McCoy, a spokesman for the police, said that they were making so many mistakes, we were spending so much time correcting their errors. But also, Elliot Davis, legendary anchor and reporter for Channel 2, now retired, says that the president of the Board of Aldermen, Megan Green, was trying to blackball him from the City Hall in his new role as kind of a about-town social media reporter who has apparently quite a few followers. He says he learned that from sources. She denies it. But is this kind of Trumpian where the Trump administration kicked the AP out of the briefing room because it wouldn't call the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America? He wouldn't call it the Gulf.
Right.
He called it the Gulf of America. Right. It is the Gulf of Mexico. Bail me out of this one.
It is the Gulf of
I'm
Mexico.
no Hall of Famer.
Right, exactly. I'm sorry, Mr. President.
You are a Hall of Famer.
And bag of people. It's the Gulf of Mexico. Okay, I think the 30 day, they got 30 days for being irresponsible. They should not really be credentialed to be there because they really aren't journalists. I'm sorry. I'm just going to be on King Journalism Mountain here and be the one that says, just because somebody declares themselves a journalist does not make them one. And just because, in other words, you just can't be walking down the street and say, I want to cover the Bomberito 500. So if they don't give me a credential, because I'm a scream you're blackballing me for, no, you're not even with a real publication or okay.
I got to argue with you here.
All right.
I think they are journalists, and I think they have made some errors in their journalism. I get why City Hall has been very frustrated. They have a bigger following than anyone at this table. I'm sorry, guys. They do. Because they're so good at doing the social media thing. And let's face it, the stories that are more sensationalized tend to do better on social media. The facts often get in my way as a journalist, and they don't always let them get in their way. But I think they're kind of earnestly asking questions and filming things that happen around town. Often they're getting things that are then followed by TV news outlets. And I think the city would do better to try to work with them rather than to cut them off from information because people are watching what they're doing.
I think and I'm clutching my pearls in case Sarah wants to accuse me of clutching my pearls. But I think you just answered your own question. They don't let facts get in the way. And
they don't always.
Oh, well, yeah,
dead babies
dead
in
bodies,
the backyard.
babies, yeah, I mean, it's and the police. Mitch McCoy, I thought he was incredibly measured, in the way he addressed this, because the police, we have these ongoing conversations about all of the things that we need from the police, and now the police are running down these bogus calls. They're having to put the public's minds at ease. I think we're burdening the police when they're too busy doing the job that
I'm going to tell you, I used to edit a newspaper that frequently irritated people in power, right? I mean, the Riverfront Times was known for that, and people would call us fake news, and, the idea of, trying to get a credential.
But you wouldn't let your reporters, you're still an editor, and you wouldn't let your reporters just...
I would not, but I don't want the government making the decision of who is a journalist and who is not a journalist.
Oh, see, that
bothers
sorry.
me.
I'm sorry.
I will not allow that because they do not want critical voices. And I'm not saying Mitch McCoy did this. I have a lot of respect for him. I don't think he behaved wrongly here, but I wouldn't have done it.
I think to Sarah's point, that's the thing. You can't legislate or outlaw stupidity. You can't. And when stupid people do stupid things, or if people aren't telling the truth, you're going to have to work around that. But if you... to Sarah's point, if you start saying, okay, you don't count as a journalist, we're allowing everyone else, you are having the government pick and choose. Like Charlie brought it up, is it Trumpian? Trump could say, well, the AP are liars.
Right. And they are.
CNN are liars.
They are.
And then not let you wouldn't have any of the major outlets. Because, we know that even the legacy media has made a lot of mistakes. We know which ones lean left, which ones lean right. We know that.
We've all made mistakes. That's the thing. We're all in the glass house.
That's different.
This is different.
We've all made mistakes, but this is not mistakes. This is clowning. And I'm not including Elliot Davis on that part, but other outlet.
This has the ring of yelling fire in a movie theater.
Yeah.
It's just because you feel like it. There's just something very distasteful and unsafe about this story.
Agreed.
I think it is unsavory. It could cause issues, but I'm always very careful when you're looking at how do we prevent stupidity, and it's really hard. And it could be a stupid outlet. I'm not saying that they are. I'm just saying.
So if I decide
really
I want to perform
difficult.
surgery, if I decide that I want to perform surgery, I should have
But that's the difference between journalism and the College of Surgery. We do need to have our surgeons regulated, not by the government, but by these private boards that regulate surgeons. I don't think anyone can regulate journalism. The genie is out of that bottle. The fact that anybody with a camera can end up with a bigger audience than any of us at this table means that battle has been lost.
Yes,
It is true. We are not
media.
credentialed. We're not licensed, and we don't go through formal training, really.
We just try to do the best we can every day and
what's-
try to get it right.
What's Tucker Carlson now? Now that he's not with Fox News, couldn't Mitch McCoy go I don't like that guy. He's talking about tanning his genitals, so we're not going to have him on.
And on that note, I guess that'll be the last note we leave you on.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you so much for joining us. And we will catch you next week at this time. Thanks, Amy.